Thank you so much for having us. I'm going to give you a little bit of history of where we started and kind of how we got to where we are, and then talk about what we're doing with Ukraine. We are a Christian nonprofit organization. Our whole goal is to get villages and individuals to self-sufficiency, whether that's local or whether that's in other countries. So that's kind of how we frame what we do. We began in 2013 on a trip to Guatemala, and my dad was a minister, so I did a lot of mission trips, but it looked very different there. And the way that they did it is you actually adopted a village and you concentrated on that village forever. You didn't jump around. You built relationships with them. You would come to find out what they need, and you work towards getting them self-sufficient, not by giving them money, but by giving them clean water, by sponsoring their kids, by teaching the ladies a trade. And so that is kind of how we started the nonprofit. It was specifically in Guatemala. What we look like internationally, we do have about 5 countries that we're in. Africa, we do child sponsorships, libraries, we provide fish, they hand dug ponds, and so we will provide fish for them. We do microloans for the mamas, and clean water. They have a system there, not one person got COVID. They are so self-sufficient in their area that they did not have to go outside for anything during that season. And that would be our goal, is to be able to get all these villages to the place that they don't have to go out if something like that would happen. So that's a great model for us. Guatemala, we do water filtration systems. We do stoves because they cook in their houses, and the smoke they get really sick from. And so we are able to go in and put stoves that have pipes. So for health reasons, it's better. And the mamas can start businesses making and selling tortillas. So it's kind of a double thing there. We are able to help with wellness classes, English classes, and teaching trades, which, if you know anything about Guatemala, their embroidery is fabulous. And so what they are doing, the older women are teaching the younger women how to do embroidery so that they can sell it. We wanted to bring some home, but they said they're not good enough, which they're amazing, but hopefully at some point we'll be able to bring home these pieces for the mamas. India, we do mostly food bags and school supplies. We have never traveled to India, but we do have a partner there, and that's the one thing that they need most. In Moldova, which is right next to Ukraine, that's a huge piece of my heart. We started traveling there probably 5 years ago. We are able to do trauma care education there. We work with a lot of teachers and social workers here, and they'll put the programs together for us, and we'll teach it there. And the good thing with the internet is if we have questions while they're there, we can just, send a message and say, this is some things we're struggling with. Trauma care is so important there because it's the largest trafficked country in the world. So whether it's children or mamas, there's a lot of trafficking that has gone on. So trauma care is needed. A lot of people foster kids. We have one family that fosters between 15 and 20 young adults. And just to get that trauma care in their hands is huge. So we do a lot of things that don't cost a lot of money because we're small, and we have to figure out ways that we can be helpful that doesn't cost us a fortune. We're also able to do after school training. We do sponsorships there. When everything happened with Ukraine, we were actually able to do emergency care funding. We work with New Creation a lot, and we did a fundraiser together, raised a little over $10,000 for our partners to be able to go to the border and take blankets and food and be able to pick up people that were coming from Ukraine and get them to different countries, wherever they needed to go for safety. In Paraguay, we are working on literacy. They have a really hard time getting books there, and we have a school teacher that is on our board that married a man from Paraguay, so that's close to her heart. So it's really just getting books there and helping the teachers learn how to teach literacy. So it's not a lot of expensive things that we do, but it's things that make a difference long term. Because we are small, we really have learned how to live on a tight budget. Our family has kind of taken the motto of live simply so others can simply live. And we really have changed the way we live. When you travel to other countries, you appreciate things a whole lot more when you come home. And so we've just, my husband and I have downsized our house, and we've just tried to figure out how can we use the funds we have to better help other people? So we do a lot of that at home. So locally, we started working with Church World Services a couple years ago, and they work strictly with refugees that are coming through the government. So it's refugees that have already been vetted. We know they're coming before they get here. And they asked us a couple years ago if we could partner with them doing a Christmas project. And at the time, our board was really searching for a way to get connected locally, because we had about 2 years where we only did international things. And they asked us to come on board and to make boxes for families, all the families that had come over the past year, that would give them coats and hats and gloves and dishes and anything that that family might need. That is how we got connected with the refugee program. And one thing, I don't think your church needs to know this, because I think y'all have a good idea about immigration, but sometimes we have to remind people our country was based on immigration. And I think people tend to forget that. But that is the tradition that we are trying to continue, is that immigration is how we became what we are. And so how do we embrace those that are coming in and make them feel safe and make them feel at home? And, that is what we are all about. So we're pretty much just continuing that. I think a lot of times when we travel, we were in Moldova when Trump pulled everybody home because of COVID. We had been there one day, and the next day Trump called everybody home. And my husband and daughter were both like, get on a plane. And I'm hard-headed, and I'm like, everybody there is kind of used to situations like that. And they were all calm, and they're like, as long as you can. And we waited until our airline tickets were, canceled, and then we were able to come home. But there was no panic there. I think they're so used to things happening, and it makes me appreciate what other countries have sometimes that we don't. And so I want to be able to treat people that are coming into our country, normally under really hard circumstances, to feel like they have a safe place to land, and that we want them. That's another thing, that we're glad that they're here, and we don't treat them any differently than we treat anybody else. So that's a lot of what we try to do. We want to be the hands and feet of Jesus. We don't necessarily go in. It's not our motto to go in and preach Jesus. We feel like we've got to meet the needs first. They've got to see Christ in our lives. And so our whole goal as a ministry is to be his hands and feet. And if that conversation comes up, that's amazing. But we feel like they need to see it in us before we can preach it to them. So refugees come to Harrisonburg because of the diversity. My kids went to Harrisonburg High School, and I am so thankful that that's where they went, because it's more diversity there than anywhere else in our community. Job opportunities. We have even had people come to us and say, we would love to hire refugees, but there are so many job opportunities for them. We can't generally get them to new people because, so it's a great thing. We have good agriculture, affordable housing, although housing is really hard right now, but generally a good public transportation system, and a community that has worked with refugees for a really long time. A lot of these programs happen in big cities because it's easier for transportation. And I think it's amazing that Harrisonburg is a place that we can do that. We are smaller, but it still works. So when a family comes through Church World Services, again, they are already vetted. We know that they're coming. So Church World Services helps them with jobs, finding homes, English, employment, education, health, and every family member has a caseworker for up to 3 months. So they are being very well taken care of when they come. What Village to Village does is we come alongside of them, and right before COVID hit, they came to us, or maybe in the midst of COVID, they came to us and they said, would you like to expand what you do with us? Absolutely. How do we do that? And they asked if we would start setting homes up. I'm not sure I knew what all that meant, but I'm like, the board was all for it. So we started setting up homes. What that takes is we have a warehouse that was given to us, so we don't have to pay rent, which is amazing. and we collect items from the community. Everything pretty much that you touch in your house, from towels and pots and pans to linens, that's the items that we collect. Everything can be gently used. So the government gives a list to Church World Services and says, all these items have to be in this home before this family can move in. If they are not in the home, that family has to pay for them out of their stipend. So the government gives them a stipend, which is not huge, and it has to last them 3 months. So each person gets a stipend for 3 months. So if we don't have a couch and we cannot find one, they have to buy a couch. Well, that would wipe out almost one of their stipends. And their stipend goes to pay usually their first 2 months rent. It goes to pay their utilities, any health care they need, groceries. It's everything that you would need as a family for 3 months. So we work really hard to build partnerships with people. If we are missing something, that we can call and say, do you have this? And a lot of the funding that we do goes to help with those move-ins. So we collect these items at our warehouse, sort them, and we set it up like a little store. So when it comes time to pull for a family, we can just go through the process of pulling all these items and making sure that that list that the government says is taken care of. We set up homes. We are also doing a program that is just starting this month. We're going to provide meals for refugees once a month at JMU's Baptist Student Center. We are not able to spend a lot of time with refugees. Normally we go in and set up the home and we leave. And especially over COVID, we would have to set it up, sanitize everything, and then they would have to wait 48 hours before the family could come in. So we don't normally get a chance to interact with them much, but we've gotten permission to be able to have these meals. And we're doing our trial run this month, but basically the last Tuesday of every month, we're asking organizations to take one meal a year. And some of the food will be safe foods for them because we're not sure what they all are in the midst of. And some of it will be American food, but we'll just get these refugees to come have a meal with us. Whoever's cooking gets to interact with them and allow them to make some connections with other people that are refugees and with the community. So we're just starting, but that's a huge opportunity. We do Christmas boxes, which I'll talk to y'all about in a minute. And a lot of times we'll do special needs if a lot of times they don't drive, so they need bikes, and that's not on the government list. So we'll collect bikes. Sometimes there's a need for wheelchairs. So if there are special things like that that come up that we don't keep on hand, we'll do a post. And normally we'll get that item within a week. So we don't take beds, but we do take bunk beds because these families can be pretty big. So bunk beds are a lifesaver for small bedrooms. One thing that I had started praying before COVID was 1 Chronicles 4:10. Oh, that you would bless us indeed and enlarge our territory, that your hand might be with us and that you would keep us from evil, that we may not cause pain. I started praying that before COVID, not knowing what was going to happen. And in my mind, I thought that's going to mean new countries, or we're going to add some villages to what we're already doing. But what it really meant was God was getting ready to send a lot of people into our community. Over 300 or 400 new people that we would be able to minister to. And so sometimes I think we pray things not knowing what it means, but it's still an answer to prayer. One thing that we try to help people remember is nobody wants to be a refugee. It happens because it's a last resort and they have to leave their homeland as a last resort. It's not something people are choosing to do. Refugees do not just show up. Many have been in camps for years. One of the first African families that we worked with had been in a refugee camp for 20 years. Mm-hmm. So all of their children had been born in the refugee camp and never knew anything different. And they had been in the process that long. So it's not like, they had actually been in process to come here for 20 years. So I think just remembering, it's been a long time. And that is why when they get here and there is a home waiting for them and it is set up, it makes them feel like we have a place to land and it's safe. Ukraine and Afghan were totally different situations. That is not the norm of what happens. Afghan people were no longer safe because they had worked a lot with the Americans. And so a lot of them had to come. And I think we had over 200 Afghans that came. And I was able to interact with them a little bit because we were helping when they were living at Massanetta. And I remember the first day I went in to set up some clothes for them to go through. There was a mama that was the tiniest thing ever, and she had 3 children. And Massanetta was still figuring out how to cook and, you know, all the guidelines. And she hadn't eaten for 3 days because she was so nervous about eating something that hadn't been prepared the way that she religiously needed to eat. And there were several mamas that were pregnant. They all went into labor early because of the stress. And, you know, I know there's a lot of good and bad, you know, that people have mindsets about refugees, but they left everything they knew. And a lot of them were very wealthy and had amazing jobs. And so they come here and, you know, we don't have a choice other than putting them in low income housing. And they don't have a choice except taking jobs that normally they would not take at home until they can get on their feet again. So the small that we do into making their homes nice doesn't seem like much, but I think our goal is that at least they feel like it's a place. The Ukrainian families came because of the war. So the difference with them, they're here legally, but they're not getting all the government help that everybody else receives. And so when they landed here, most of them came because family was here. Some of them didn't, but most of them were in host homes. So they don't have a place of their own yet. I think out of the 30 families that I know of, there might be 3 that have been able to get jobs and get into housing. They are going through the paperwork. You know, some of them want to go home, but they can't yet, but they still have to get jobs. Well, to get jobs, you have to go through the process of getting all the paperwork. And Church World Services, as well as New Bridges, I think are helping a ton with that. But paperwork for one person can cost between $500 and $2,000, but they have to have that to get a job. So the kids are in school. The community's been great about getting the kids in school. So that part of it has been taken care of, but it is really just being able to get jobs so that they can find their own housing. And the host homes have been amazing. And so the way we facilitate it, we're not setting up homes, but we're able to give these host families more furniture, more dishes, laundry detergent, anything they need to have an extra 10 people living in your space. And we're not able to give used mattresses on a regular basis. That's off limits, but Ukrainians will take anything we can give them. So, and they'll pick it up. They just are thankful to have something when they come. We supply the same things for Ukrainian families. Some of the things that have been specific to the Ukrainian families are bedding, school supplies. I had no idea how much school supplies cost. And I went shopping this year, and for 2 little boys, it was about $150. Well, so we get a lot of school supplies, but a lot of times you're missing things that they have to have. So we want them to go to school with everything they need. Pots and pans, clothes, towels, furniture, lots of laundry detergent and gift cards. We did a fundraiser right after they started coming and raised about $16,000 specifically for paperwork, so that those families would have the funds to pay for paperwork. So we've gone through over half of that so far, which is good because at least those families are getting to the point that they'll be able to get jobs. But we facilitate things that we really never thought we would facilitate just because of the circumstances. So, and refugees don't come with a lot materially, but I'm telling you, they are some of the smartest, brightest people. And I think if people would take time to get to know them, economic studies show that refugees are able to make our communities much stronger. And I believe that with my whole heart. We know a lot of Russians. We have a Russian family that travels with us, and he and his wife build the most gorgeous houses I've ever seen. And they're hard workers. And so when they come into our community, they make us better. So I'm going to share a few ways that you can partner with us. And then I'll talk about our Christmas event because that's our largest event this year. Finances are always needed. We do have a long-term goal. My daughter Gentry just came on staff this year, and she had to raise her own salary because we're not quite big enough to do that yet. But our long-term goal is to have either an Airbnb or a transitional housing for refugees that can fund our staff so that 100% of what people give us goes directly to projects. And we don't have to use any of that for our day-to-day. Right now we're about 50-50, so we're getting there. But that's finances are always helpful. On an average, it costs us $175 to do a move-in. Because of the things that we're lacking, I have a big truck that I have to pull a big trailer with. And so a lot of times we're having to go get furniture and having to drop it off. So even if we have most of everything, it usually takes us about that much to do a move-in for a family. Volunteering, our warehouse is not huge, but we get a lot of donations. So we are always sorting and putting things away. We have one donation night a month, and generally it takes us a week to sort and put that stuff away because it's so much, which is great. We're grateful for, but it's time consuming. Our meals that are once a month, our move-ins, we have move-in teams that will meet us. We'll have the trailer packed up and they'll meet us at the house. They unload it, they wash all the dishes, they make up the beds, they hang the clothes, they do everything. So if I didn't have teams to do that, we would not be able to do that ministry. So physical donations, which are just simply, what do you have that you no longer use at your house? Do you have pots and pans? Do you have clothes? Do you have bedding? Do you have, we love to decorate the homes, and that is not on the government list. But we love to have a few pictures, some flowers, a wreath. We like to put something in every home to make it feel like it's home. We always try to put stuffed animals or baby dolls or things for the kids. I tell you, if you find the best thing we get for the kids are those matching games that have one word on them because they can learn English, but it's also a game. And so anything like that that can help them learn English, we love having those kind of things on hand. Prayer is huge. We would absolutely not be where we are without prayer. That's just to do what we are doing the way we started out. We would have never dreamed that we would have helped over 300 or 400 families in a year. And we only do that because we really try to hear God's voice in it and make sure that we are doing what He's asking us to do. Housing, I am now, Church World Services partners with us to help find housing. So part of my job now is to find rentals, and that's not easy to do. And refugees, we've talked to multiple companies, and refugees will never check off all the boxes that you have to go into a rental because you can't do background checks on them, even though they're vetted, it doesn't count. And we've had 2 management companies tell us if you could get transitional housing where they could live here for 3 months, they would check off every box. And so one of our goals is to own an apartment complex that is nothing but transitional housing. Those families come in, they live for 3 months knowing that they're going to be transitioning out to their permanent housing. JMU did a program with us this summer. They had some dorms that they had actually used for COVID. Students that got COVID, and because all their students are gone in the summer, they allowed families to use that as transitional housing, and it was amazing because we probably had 4 or 6 families be able to use that for the summer months, and then they were able to get into their transitional housing. They can't do it when school is going on, but they are trying to move towards something that is permanent. So that was just a really big blessing for us. Let's see. So the biggest thing that we do, and one thing that really we're trying to just get all hands on deck, our Christmas collection this year is the boxes that we do. So we've narrowed it down a little bit. So what we did last year, we used JMU Student Center because they have a big space, and we collected coats, hats, and gloves and scarves for every person. And then every child, we tried to get a book and a toy. And then for the family, we tried to have a game, which they have to be very simple games because, you know, they don't know English. So we just try to get them really easy games. And then if we had extras, if we had extra socks or if we had extra undergarments, whatever we had extra, we kind of took. We had 20 families, so we had 20 volunteer groups that came in. They packed for that family, and then they were able to deliver it to them, which is great because that's not something we get to do very often. And Church World Services let them know, you know, tonight you're going to have somebody bring you some things, and they don't necessarily all celebrate Christmas, so we don't call it a Christmas thing for them. We don't wrap gifts. We don't do any of that. It's just a box, and we try to take baked goods with it. So last year we did 20 families. This year we're up to 125. So that's 300 to 400 coats, all the games, all the things that is going to go into that. We Goods Transfer graciously gave us a tractor trailer that is sitting on our property. So we'll be able to take inventory, get stuff put in there, and they'll move it to the place that we actually will host the event. But it will take a lot of community effort to be able to do it. And again, every single thing that we collect can be used. None of it has to be new, just gently used. So we've got 2 girls that are homeschooled that they're going to do a collection, and they're going to set a goal for themselves, whether it's coats or toys. They're going to set a goal and talk with their community and their family. And we've got a couple JMU organizations that may be helping out, but you know, anything that can move us towards getting that event pulled off will be very helpful. And the Ukrainians will be part of that. I think right now we have 125 or 130 Ukrainian people that are already a part of that. And we'll add families because the cutoff is not until the end of November. So any families that come until November will be able to be a part of that. We host it the first full week of December because it's not really a Christmas thing for them. And for us, a lot of people have a lot of stuff they do over the holidays. So we try to get it done that first week. And we are not allowed to talk to them about God. If that's with Church World Services, they could lose their licensing. So that's one thing that we don't put any Christian material in there. It's all about welcoming them and letting them know that we are glad that they are here. Eventually the dinners, we may be able to have conversations, but this specific event is just letting them know we're glad you're part of it. So that is huge for us. The collection has already started. And I will tell you, the Ukrainian families are some of the most appreciative that we've ever had come through. And I think it's probably because of their circumstances. But they had a picnic for us a couple weeks ago, just to say thank you for the people that have kind of started doing this. And first of all, they cook amazing. The food is crazy good. And we use Google Translate a lot. I've had all my staff, I said, you need to have Google Translate in case they come pick up items, because they want to communicate with you and they desire to say thank you. And but a lot of times when the mamas come, they'll just cry and hug you. They don't know what else to do, So they're very appreciative, and we're getting more of them. I kind of thought maybe we were at a point, but the lady that we work with said there's more families coming. So I don't even pay attention to the political part of it because it's too much for my head. All I know is when families come, we want to make sure that we're taking care of. So, yeah. So and you all are welcome to ask questions. I do have this whole page on the back. Gentry has these over there. This is the government list. So this is everything that we have to collect. The only thing that they require to be new is mattresses. But we don't even do anything with that part of it because there's an organization that does that, but we do the linens. So, we do the other parts of it, but these are things that every single collection day, these are things we have to have on hand. This is just a flyer about us, but these are dates for our refugee meal. So if that is something you all would ever want to do as an organization, we just right now, this month is taken care of and October's taken care of. We haven't pushed it a lot because we want to get through our trial meal first to make sure we have everything that we need. But it'll be a great opportunity to just be able to be with people. And I don't know if any of you all have seen the family, the Ukrainian family. They do some of the art things with Oasis. And they've had them sing. They're so talented. And one of the pastors that is from Ukraine, they were one of the first families here, and they ran a camp for kids, and it was just leveled. So they left everything, and there's nothing for them to get back to. So it's hard. It's heartbreaking, some of the stories, but they're very thankful to be here. So we'll have questions. Yes.
Just thinking about the religious aspect, because my dad has a caregiver who is from Belarus, and she goes to the Slavic church. And I know that in her congregation, her church, they're very evangelical, and she was concerned about. We asked her to come help us with our art project, our art event. I haven't heard back from her yet. But I feel this tension, a little bit of tension, because she's concerned about serving, wondering about refugees who are not Christian. Of course, I'm not going to engage in a conversation with them about that. But have y'all reached out to the Slavic church? Is the Slavic church helping?
We do work alongside them. And I will tell you, Ukrainians, it's different because they do not fall under church world services. They don't fall under church world services. So because they are here on their own, they come to my church. You can talk to them all day long about God. So it's different because they didn't come through the government agencies and the government is not paying. So it's totally different with them. With everybody else that comes through, the guideline is, as long as they fall under church world services, you cannot talk to them about God. Once they are out from underneath that, you can. And I've been questioned because people are like, but you're a Christian organization, why are you not? And I said, well, number one, our core organization that we work with can lose their licensing. And so we're going to have respect for them. And that's one reason we started the meals, because we thought that's a way for us to get connected to these people, and they'll continue coming after that 3-month period. And so we'll be able to continue to invest in them and invite them to church and do things. But the Ukrainians, and I will tell you, every house that we set up, we pray over that house. And we have people part of our teams that are not Christian, but we will always stop for 5 minutes and pray a blessing over that house, because regardless, God still works. And, I may never meet the people there, but we want them to have a good start. So we are able to do that. And there's so many religions that come in. And so I don't ever want to make people feel like I know better than they are, or my way is right. And so we are just super careful about the conversations that we have with people. And again, Ukrainians are different. They, most of them are Christian people, the ones that have come in that we know of. And the Slavic and Russian church both came to the event that we hosted to raise money for them. And there was a lot of prayer happening and a lot of praising going on. So, it looks very different when you come through the government agencies. And church world services, because that's their name. So it sounds like, why can't we? But they are a government agency, which means that's off limits. Now, the first family that I was telling you about, the African family that had been in a refugee camp for 20 years, they were one of the first families that we went in. And I don't know if Gentry remembers, I think she still lived at home or came home, but they needed so much stuff. And we just gathered all this stuff from our friends and took it back to them. And because we were going back to check on them on a regular basis, they eventually started coming to church with us. We would just go by and pick them up. And, so when you've built that relationship is long-term. You have the opportunity then to, some people will not work with us because they cannot have those conversations. And that's fine, that's okay. But even when we go into other countries, we still want to be careful because we don't, we don't want anyone thinking Americans know that what's best. And, so if we feel like it's appropriate to pray, we always ask permission. And, we've had some amazing things happen, but I think it's because we ask God to go before us and we are just very careful. Yes, ma'am.
I know that at the beginning, when the Ukrainian refugees were coming, and you said Massanet Springs provided some transitional housing. Is that a possibility again for this, the academic year now, as opposed to JMU doing something in the summer?
Massanetta, it was a really hard thing for them. They had a lot of refugees staying there, and I'm not sure, they still have a few families staying in cottages there. So they're still trying to help out as they can. And I know they have all their camps during the summer, so they couldn't have anybody there. But I think we have I'm not sure they could handle that big of a situation again. And the hard thing about Massanetta Springs is they can't do their own laundry. So you have to have volunteers that will come in and take their laundry. They can't do their own cooking. It's not like the normal transitional housing. At JMU, they had a washer and dryer, they had their own kitchen, they had everything. It was kind of like a hotel. And actually it was better because they had everything. So I don't know. I'm sure that people have talked to them about that. Church World Services is just now starting to they actually hired somebody on staff that could help with the Ukrainians and speak their language and kind of get them to the right places. So they do have someone. It's just that they're not coming through that government. They're not coming that way. So, Massanetta Springs, that was amazing. There's no way we could have facilitated all the Afghans without them. But it was a hard, yeah. We've talked to realtors and people about, would you be willing to do transitional housing? Would you be willing to even open it up to refugees? If we do a contract that says we'll cover the first year, we've tried to figure out how are there ways that we can get them into housing, but the majority of the landlords go through, they have somebody else that does all the work for them. And so when you have the management companies doing this work for you, they have to go by these guidelines. If you own property on your own, you can do anything you want. But the majority of the people that own property in Harrisonburg go through management companies, and they're the ones that have the guidelines. So, we're having a lot more conversation with people that own their own property and just trying to figure out how can we get more space. They've expanded it to Bridgewater and Dayton. It used to just be Harrisonburg, but they've had to expand it a little bit because we just need the extra housing. They like for them to be near a grocery store, near a bus stop. So transportation is really important, or to have bikes, if they're in Dayton or Bridgewater and they have a job there, that we can get them bikes. And that's not on the government list. But if there's not transportation, then we have to figure out how is it going to be helpful for them to live in Dayton if we can't get them a bike or something. So Molehill Bikes has started working with us. A lot of people donate their bikes back to them or want to, and so they have been sending the people to us. So we have started getting some bikes and things like that. We've had people donate cars to the Ukrainians. Our community has been very willing. We can't do cars for regular refugees because you can't give every refugee a car, but with the Ukrainians, it looks a little different. And so we've had people willing to donate cars so that they can get back and forth to work, the ones that have jobs.
So the Ukrainians are not coming through the government. How are you knowing that they're arriving?
Our church has a large Russian influence. And so when things first started, our church had a meeting with a couple of the Russian ladies, and we just talked about how are we going to be able to help facilitate this. And at the time, we're pretty new to our church. So at the time, they didn't know much about Village to Village. And I said, look, I'm willing to facilitate giving them things if there is somebody that is willing to be that go-between person. So I don't have to talk to 20 different families. So I have 2 ladies that are my contacts. And if they have a need, if they need a crib, they will call me. And when I have one, or if I do have one, I said, I've got it here. Can they pick it up? The one difference is with the Ukrainians, they will go anywhere to pick anything up because they are in desperate need. With the normal refugees, we load everything on my trailer and take it and move it in for them. But I simply have 2 ladies I work with, and they facilitate everything. If we want them to come to the meal, the refugee meal, I go through those 2 ladies because they speak the language. They know these families. There's some accountability as well. We do not like to give money to people, and that's not what we do. And so the way that we worked out paying for the paperwork is they'll go to New Bridges, have the paperwork done. New Bridges will send us a bill so that we know we're paying New Bridges for something they've already done. We're not giving a family $100 hoping that they go, because if their kids need something, they might go, So every organization that Village to Village works with internationally and local, they have to have really good reputations and accountability for us to be, because we're not a large organization. So our funding is super important. And if our donors say we're giving you this money for this, we want to make sure that that's where it goes. We have sponsor kids, and 100% of those funds go to sponsor kids. So we actually lose money on that end because you always have fees when you're transitioning money over. But we've seen some hard situations where that funding is not getting completely to that child. So, we probably lose more money than we make because we want to make sure that things are done the way they need to be done. And so if people say, I'm giving this specifically for move-ins, that's where it has to go. It can't go, for something else, for an international thing or something else.
So would you mind sharing which church you're working with?
I'm at Crosslink.
Okay. Yes.
Crosslink.
In Fairgrounds.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, and then do you have an actual physical space for Village?
We do.
Okay.
We do. It's odd. Initially, I was working at the Nazarene Church when I started Village to Village. And so initially I was working out of my office there and borrowed warehouse space. The issue with borrowed warehouse space is they make you move when they get somebody that wants to rent it. So we were moving our whole warehouse multiple times. And my husband's family owns Dove's Camper Sales out 33 West. And so she is getting older and she had a gift shop and she's like, I think I'm just done with that. I think I'm going to rent it out. And I'm like, could we maybe?
Yeah.
And so we don't pay any rent. There's a big tractor trailer that sits behind it for furniture, for big pieces of furniture. And inside the warehouse is our office. And then that's where like clothes and toys and anything that can't be outside, And then we have a very small shop right beside us that is a boutique. We get a lot of things that refugees can't use, whether it's clothes that they're never going to wear shorts and, certain things. So we open our boutique once a month and the funds from that help us with move-ins. So we had a huge yard sale yesterday. It brought in $500 and it's a lot of work, but that's funding that we get to use, to help others. And we have free space, which is a huge blessing.
I was talking to Gentry. I remember well your Village Closet days. Of
Yes.
The sales you used to have.
Yeah.
It is on
33 West, past the middle school.
Oh,
We're maybe 2 miles past the middle school. Yeah, it is actually in Dove's Camper Sales parking lot, but our warehouse is to the right. So.
Any other questions?
Well, then, thank you so
Thank
much. And thank
you.
you for telling us so much about the organization.
Sure.
And we will, thank you for bringing flyers and
Yeah.
different things that we can be following up on.
Okay, great. Thank you.